Hello, my name is Gokey Gamer, coach of the Milwaukee Medichams, and this is log number 7 of testing the power of these Paradox Pokemon for Professor Turo. I have been recruited by the professor to help gather intel on these Iron Pokemon by battling with them in this old association, and in exchange I have been promised a championship title as these Pokemon are just that powerful. This week we're going to be battling a coach by the name of the GhostricksterLeo and the Revoliution, a coach and a team that I have seen be a major force to be reckoned with, so needless to say this will be quite the intense fight, especially since apparently this team also has managed to get their hands on another extremely threatening Iron Pokemon. Their team consists of Gouging Fire, Scizor, Alomomola, Iron Bundle, Hisuian Zoroark, Tsareena, Alolan Muck, Hatterene, Galarian Zapdos, Magnezone, and finally a Trapinch. The Tera captains consist of Tsareena with Tera Fire, Steel, and Ground types, Hatterene with the Tera Fairy, Steel, and Water types, and finally Trapinch with the Tera Bug, Ground, and Normal types. Now obviously, the Pokemon that was stolen from the professor, being Iron Bundle, is a massive threat on their own, but against my team specifically, it can easily claim lives as pretty much my entire team is weak to the Hydro Pump and Freeze Dry combo. And we can't even use our Electric Terrain to defeat it because it also has Quirk Drive. Besides Iron Bundle, Pokemon like Gouging Fire, Scizor, Tsareena, and even little Trapinch could also cause me some major issues. In terms of what I'm expecting to make an appearance, I'm thinking it's going to be Gouging Fire, Iron Bundle, Alolan Muck, Tsareena, Scizor, and unironically, possibly Trapinch. We've got yet another tough matchup this week, which means we're bringing the big guns this week. Let's talk about what I'm bringing and why I'm bringing it. The first Pokemon we've got is the return of our dedicated terrain setter and our most likely lead, Spiny the Pincurchin. Holding the terrain booster to increase the duration of our terrain, we've got the moves Supercell, Slam, Sucker Punch, Thunder Wave, and Recover, alongside Max Attack and Max HP. While it is true that the already terrifying Iron Bundle is only going to become even more powerful under the electric terrain, ultimately we're going to be the ones that benefit the most from this power, as even Spiny can use his own terrain to his advantage with Supercell Slam. And a spoiler for the rest of the team, but we are bringing all of our Iron Mons this week. Spiny will also be our dedicated lead if either Tsareena shows up or if Trapinch doesn't show up. Hopefully this week he won't just provide support via terrain, but also through paralysis and chipping things down. The next Pokemon that we're bringing is the only other non-Iron Mon making an appearance, the reliable Derp, the Quagsire. This week holding the Yache Berry for Freeze Dry and Max HP and Special Defense with the moves Earthquake, Toxic Recover, and Stealth Rock, alongside the ability Unaware to stop Gouging Fire from setting up. This week our main role as per usual is to simply weaken things down while also tanking hits. Derp will also be our other dedicated lead, specifically if Trapinch makes an appearance. While some Pokemon like Magic Bounce Hatterene could be an issue, I do still think Derp will be able to not just tank hits, but dish them back too. After Derp is going to be our first Iron Mon, our Tera Captain Iron Thorns. Once again running Dragon Dance, our Tera type of choice is actually the Fire type with the moves Supercell Slam, Stone Edge, and Tera Blast, with Pasho Berry specifically for Iron Bundle's Hydro Pump, Max Attack, enough speed to outspeed a modest Iron Bundle at +1, and the rest of investment being in Special Defense. A self-explanatory set, as per usual I'm really hoping that Iron Thorns will claim lives this week too. Next up is going to be the always terrifying threat Iron Moth. Also holding the Pasho Berry because Iron Bundle really terrifies me, this week we've got Max Speed and Max Special Defense alongside the moves Fiery Dance, Discharge, Morning Sun, and Hurricane. This set is meant to outspeed everything with the electric terrain while also nuking everything by setting up with Fiery Dance and clicking buttons. Morning Sun is there for reliable recovery against Pokemon like Scizor and Alomomola, and at the very least I know this Pokemon will be able to chip a lot of different Pokemon down, so I'm hoping the Hawaiian Pizza puts in work like always. Our fifth Pokemon we're bringing this week is going to be none other than the MVP of our Week 5 game, Titanium the Iron Crown. Once again holding the weakness policy, they've got the moves Tachyon Cutter, Stored Power, Iron Defense, and Agility with Max Special Defense, enough speed to outspeed everything at +2, and the rest invested in Special Attack. A very similar set to Week 5, I think this set has a very good chance to at least claim a couple of lives before going down. Hopefully, I'm proven right. And finally, the last Pokemon that we're bringing is, of course, our final Iron Mon, that happens to be our ace, Iron Valiant. Holding the Babiri Berry to help tank a hit against Bullet Punch Scizor, this week we've got the moves Spirit Break, Fire Punch, Swords Dance, and Vacuum Wave specifically for Iron Bundle. With Max Attack, enough speed to outspeed Hisuian Zoroark, and the rest being invested into Special Attack to deal as much damage as I can to Iron Bundle, hopefully Iron Valiant will be able to clean up the match, or at least prevent a sweep from occurring. And that is the complete team we're bringing for this match. Once again, an extremely tough matchup for us, as this game could honestly go either way and will depend heavily on what my opponent brings. However, I can note that both I, and particularly the Professor, is extremely excited to see what this team can do, especially under electric terrain. So without any further ado, let's go see what my opponent brought and head into the battle. Immediately heading into the battle, I'm extremely surprised to see that Tsareena doesn't make an appearance, but I'm also very pleased to see that Trapinch, Hisuian Zoroark, and Magnezone also didn't come to this game, so I go with my preferred lead being Spiny the Pincurchin. As we lead Spiny, my opponent ends up leading the extremely scary Iron Bundle. Because of the electric terrain being triggered, we also see that Iron Bundle's highest stat is going to be its Special Attack. which while that is great for Iron Moth as long as it's not scarfed, it's also going to be very scary for the rest of my team. I decide to go for a Supercell Slam since it can actually one-shot Iron Bundle, and despite risking getting one-shot by Hydro Pump in return, my opponent instead goes for a flip turn, switching out and going into Gouging Fire, dealing honestly a decent amount of damage despite it being not very effective. Obviously, I have to switch out, so predicting a Dragon Dance, I send in Derp the Quagsire as, surprisingly, my opponent decides to double out into none other than a Alolan Muck, which is honestly a pretty great situation for me. Since my opponent doesn't have any Pokemon immune to Earthquake, I decide to click that button as my opponent reveals some pretty awesome hidden tech with Giga Drain. Fortunately for us, despite being 4 times weak to the grass type attack, it doesn't even do half of our HP as we deal an immense chunk of damage to the colorful sludge in return, putting us in an extremely good position. Predicting my opponent to switch out, I decide to go for a Recover to get back up to full HP, and thankfully I do get that prediction right as my opponent switches into none other than a Alomomola. Worried in the back of my mind that my opponent would swap into Magic Bounce Hattering, I actually decide to click Earthquake once again as a Alomomola actually goes for a flip turn, revealing to my opponent that I am in fact unaware instead of Water Absorb. Certainly not ideal, but we can work around that. Unsurprisingly, Hatterene is the Pokemon that actually switches in, so we deal a decent chunk of damage to it as it also restores a bit of that damage due to some held leftovers. Finally deciding that Quagsire has chipped enough Pokemon for now, I opt to switch into Titanium the Iron Crown with my upped special defense from the terrain as my opponent clicks Calm Mind. Well, that isn't quite ideal. If I had Calm Mind, I would be okay in this situation, but since I don't, if this is a Trick Room Hatterene, that could cause me a lot of problems. So as a result, I decide to make a fairly risky play predicting a Mystical Fire, and I send in Mechagodzilla the Iron Thorns. And as Hatterene clicks the Tera button, it reveals that she's Tera Water. Not gonna lie, I definitely got lucky with that prediction. Since Hatterene didn't go for a Trick Room and I felt certain my opponent would want to save the Big Hat, as well as the fact that I have the Pasho Berry, I decided to go for a Dragon Dance so that I can nuke whatever might want to switch in, which ends up paying off as Gouging Fire is the Pokemon that switches in as the electric terrain ends, meaning that I unfortunately do lose my Quark Drive attack boost. Not wanting to be forced to tank a quad effective Earthquake, I decide to instead make my odds a bit better by revealing my own Tera, being Tera Fire. However, as it turns out, my opponent actually decides to swap into Scizor, who loses over half of his HP from Stone Edge and also once again reveals that my opponent is holding leftovers. During the next turn, predicting yet another switch, I decide to go for another Dragon Dance that will confirm that I outspeed everything that isn't Scarfed. But my opponent actually goes for a U-turn. Not necessarily a big deal, as to be honest, I'm still in a great position to sweep. I just have to make sure I don't miss this Supercell Slam. Oh. Well, that's unfortunate. So not only was this Pokemon scarfed and modest, the U-turn chip from Scizor was just enough to finish Mechagodzilla off with a Hydro Pump, even after the Pasho Berry took effect. Not gonna lie, I could have won this game right here had I just taken out Scizor and not gotten greedy, but I didn't calculate to see if at +2 I'd be able to outspeed a Scarfed Iron Bundle, leading to our beloved mech falling. At the very least, now we know this Pokemon is scarfed, so while I don't really have a great counter to Hydro Pump, I can still send an Iron Moth to tank the hit decently well and hopefully one-shot the Robotic Penguin with a Discharge. This bird is going to be the end of me, isn't it? As unfortunate as it is that we didn't get the roll we needed to KO Iron Bundle, I now have to face the fact that I'm going to have to either sack something off or hope for a miss. I decide to send Spiny back in, as despite the fact that I do power up Iron Bundle with the Electric Terrain again, I'm hopeful that I can either somehow tank another Hydro Pump or dodge the attack to revenge with Sucker Punch. But unfortunately, neither of those situations happen, meaning that we lose another Pokemon on our team, putting us quite a bit on the back foot. Since my hand is forced, I have to send in Iron Valiant and click Vacuum Wave so that I don't straight up lose to this major threat. As expected, my opponent opts to save the bundle and sends in their big fish Alomomola to easily tank that hit. Fortunately, there's absolutely nothing that this fish can do to heavily damage me, so I can freely go for a Swords Dance to set up to a +2 attack, combined with the Electric Terrain boosting my attack even further to finally start claiming lives for our team. Well, apparently this just really isn't my game. Unfortunately, due to the burn, my attack is severely weakened, and as I click Spirit Break, I not only learn that this Alomomola is max HP and defense and lives the attack with ease, she's also holding the Rocky Helmet, severely chipping down our ace Iron Mon while also firing off a Wish, meaning that on the next turn, something is going to get healed up quite a bit. And in retaliation, it looks like I'm going to have to rely once again on Stored Power Weakness Policy Iron Crown. Thankfully, instead of going for a flip turn on the switch, my opponent actually clicked Protect, meaning that Titanium gets a free switch and can take advantage of the Electric Terrain, boosting our special defense. Well, time to pray. I opt to go for an agility first, reason being that I can make sure I outspeed the most likely Gouging Fire coming in and fire off an Iron Defense on the next turn. And as expected, my opponent does end up going for a flip turn, but it actually ends up going into a Alolan Muck. This actually ends up being no issue, as I can simply fire off an Iron Defense to take in the incoming knockoff and reverse sweep. But my opponent goes for Drain Punch. Sure, it doesn't do much damage, but then I realize my opponent's plan. They're hoping to weaken Titanium down so that Gouging Fire can come in and finish them off with a Flare Blitz, meaning that now, it's time to cut. What follows is me clicking Agility one more time so that Iron Bundle can't switch in for free, and then I start clicking Tachyon Cutter as my opponent keeps clicking Drain Punch, and it's revealed that this Alola Muck has an Assault Vest. And while we do eventually win this 1v1 with a crit on the final hit no less, we are going to have to live one more roll as Gouging Fire comes in. Now, if we set up to a +4 defense, we have to not only survive this incoming Flare Blitz, which is a roll, but we also have to survive with enough HP to make sure that I can live a Bullet Punch from Scizor and an Extreme Speed from Gouging Fire, which unfortunately isn't likely. This turn could decide the results of this game, and we've had so much RNG go against us, so perhaps we'll be able to turn it around here. Titanium, show them what you're made of. And the crown remains at the throne as he manages to barely live the incoming Flare Blitz, meaning that all we have to do is click Stored Power to pick up an easy KO on this Gouging Fire as long as he doesn't have Extreme Speed. But in an extremely surprising turn of events, our opponent actually opts to send in Scizor, which easily dies to the incoming hit and loses my opponent one of his 2 priority users. Next, my opponent sends in his Tera Captain Hatterene, but because of her Tera type, she also stands no chance against the incoming Stored Power. We might just turn this around. Next up to come in is a Alomomola, which also stands no chance against the incoming Stored Power, and at this point it's all but confirmed that Gouging Fire doesn't have Extreme Speed and we can just win! This is even further proved after my opponent sent in his only other remaining Pokemon, that freaking Iron Bundle, which finally dies to a Tachyon Cutter, and as Gouging Fire comes in, we click Store Power one more time to win us this game! Let's freaking go! This fight was probably one of the most intense fights of the entire season. RNG went so heavily against us, especially during the mid-game, but once Scizor went down and it was revealed that Gouging Fire didn't have Extreme Speed, Titanium the Iron Crown just went and claimed the entirety of my opponent's team as we only needed one roll to go our way. And thankfully, it most certainly did. While this was definitely not our cleanest game, and Iron Thorns could have been the one claiming the 6-0 sweep title instead, at the very least Iron Crown was given yet another opportunity to show just how threatening they, along with the rest of our team, can be. And I, for one, could not be more proud of them. Regardless, that will be the end of this log. If you're still watching, thank you so much for your support. If you guys enjoyed this battle and want to see more, then leave a like, comment, and subscribe as it helps our research on these Iron Mons immensely. I would also like to shout out Leo's channel as well. Their channel and their side of the battle will be linked down below, so please be sure to check them out. GG's to them again, and I wish them luck for the rest of the season ahead. Also be sure to check out some of our other Draft League content for more battles from me. If you want to show support financially and earn some unique perks, then be sure to check out my Ko-Fi link down below as well. With that, this is the end of the log. See you all tomorrow for a Week 8 game. Peace out, mates. You know, I'm really starting to enjoy having these Pokemon around and battling alongside them, but I absolutely despise how the professor has been treating them. The constant experiments pushing them to their limits are really hard to watch. I have to wonder, have I gone too far in teaming up with him? How much farther is he going to torture these Pokemon for his research? Hopefully not much longer.